And hello again, and welcome to Professional Insights, brought to you by the National Referral Network and hosted by me, that really articulate guy that you've gotten used to over the past few weeks. I don't know why I said that, but that just kind of came out. We present every week professional insights, wisdom, and other stuff for the benefit of everybody that watches this. So you can learn something. I know I learn something every time we do these. Today I'm with Stuart Guthrie. Stuart, how are you?
Doing well, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Today we're going to talk about how to sell your business for the max possible value. I don't suppose anybody that sells a business wants to just get an okay price for it, right? It's like saying, oh, that's fair, we'll sell it for an okay price. Everybody wants as much money as they can possibly get for it, but nobody seems to know how to do that. So why don't we jump right into this and talk about that? First of all, Stuart, you are a business broker. You are in the business of selling other businesses, helping business owners get ready to sell and hang out that for sale sign. Is that right?
That's correct, except we don't hang up the for sale sign because it needs to be confidential. But yes, to all the above.
It needs to be confidential. So you don't have like the Century 21 jacket or any of that stuff. Like, you know,
I don't look good in gold jacket anyway.
There you go. We don't want to do that. So walk us through. If somebody wants to sell their business, you know, let's say it's a business owner who's ready to retire and they don't have anybody they would necessarily succeed them in the business, or either in the family, something like that, and they just want to sell it. What are the initial steps they should take? Walk us through the process.
Fundamentally, the very first when we get a call or we reach out to someone and they say, yeah, I'm X number of years old and I'm thinking that I probably should at least consider retiring. Typically, our first step is evaluation. Right. In other words, because that's everyone's first. How much is my business worth? Ideally, maybe someone who's sitting in the chair of professional financial planner or something like that might have prompted that question before they're ready to retire earlier. So, because that's going to be it. Frequently, business owners, that is the most valuable asset is the business itself. That is a key part of their retirement plan. And so they're going to get a valuation. We do that in-house. I should probably draw the distinction between a business valuation or a broker's opinion of value and a business appraisal for legal purposes, partner dissolutions, divorces, things like that. Someone would actually need an appraisal. They've got a whole bunch of letters after their name. They're really sharp people, typically accountants. I will probably arrive at very close to the same value, but my valuation wouldn't stand up in court if necessary. But we come up with a valuation. That figure that we come up with is going to put a smile on their face or a frown on their face. And then they need to decide what they want to do at that point.
So is it true that most business owners think their business is worth a lot more than it actually is when you do the appraisal?
Almost always, yes.
Okay, so how do you talk them off of that ledge and say, you know what, I know you thought it was worth $5 million, but the appraisal came in at 2.5. How's that conversation go?
It's a disappointment. It's just like anything else when there's set expectations. I think a lot of it is set up from the standpoint that we read in the business press about, this business sold for 10 times earnings, this business sold for these astronomical amounts. The public markets are super efficient. Lots of people know that things are for sale. The reporting is typically good. We're talking about Main Street business here. We're talking about, mom and pop sounds a little, I don't know, derogatory, but it's not. I mean, it's a local. I mean, I think the majority of wealth in this country is created by these quote unquote small businesses that are, worth $5 or $10 million,
And so, but are you successful when it comes to, they think it's worth $5 million. You tell them it's worth 2.5. Do they often, are you successful in convincing them that that's the real value, or do they sometimes go, I don't care, I'm going to sell it for $5 million. I won't take a penny less. And then you do that.
That happens pretty frequently. Typically at that point, what we want to do, usually what it comes down to is looking and doing a sanity check on the back end. In other words, the question comes down, would you do this deal? In other words, the cash flow is X. You're asking, if someone's going to get financing, this is what their payment would be. Or, well, I think people should pay cash for this business at $5 million. Well, that's great. If your business is worth $5 million, or someone has $5 million laying around to buy your business, you realize with the current lending standards, they can secure a $50 million business, right?
Mm-hmm.
With 10% down, and as well, it's not an SBA loan, $50 million. But regardless, people with that kind of money laying around are typically going to try to leverage their funding, and business multiples and the risk in businesses goes down as the larger the business is. So it makes sense for people to pursue a larger business. So I keep answering these other side questions here rather than your direct question. Yeah, I do have to talk them down, or we have a conversation. Hopefully we've talked to them before they're absolutely ready to go and they want to punch out yesterday, so they have time to polish their business up and look at how to make their business more valuable in the eyes of a buyer.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because it's one thing to say, hey, again, my business is worth 5 million in my earlier example, but are you also in a position to say it's not, but here's what you need to do to get it to that point? And is it true? So that's part one of the question, like what do they need to do to get it there? And I think part two of the question is, if most small businesses are too owner centric, which I think
almost always, yes,
they almost always are. So therefore, they're so dependent upon the owner for the lion's share of the revenue. What is the game plan for getting that business in a position where it's less owner centric and therefore worth more? Because we all know that businesses that are less dependent upon the owner in a single relationship are more valuable. How does that how long does it take to orchestrate that transition, and what does it look like?
Kind of a rule of thumb, and obviously it's going to vary from business to business, but we say we'd like to talk to someone 3 to 5 years before they're ready to exit, so that you have time to pull those levers that would make your business. In other words, when we value business, we look at financial results. That's the biggest factor associated with profitability, clean books and records, all those types of things. Those are all very important factors and issues in business valuation. So if we look at between 3 and 5 years of financials. So if you're looking to get your business ready to sell, ideally you're looking ahead a little bit and say, look, I'm 55, I want to retire when I'm 60. You should talk to someone. Now, in regards to how we go about that, yes, my wife is a CEPA, is a certified exit planning advisor. She's a value builders advisor. That said, we don't do that. What it does is the knowledge of the exit planning industry and the vocabulary helps us coach people and helps us guide people. But we focus on transactions in our office. We focus on transactions. So we're typically looking to find a coach for someone, and we want to stay in contact. I mean, obviously, it makes sense for us to stay in contact.
So you're looking for somebody to coach them into what they need to become, so they can sell for the highest possible value. Okay?
Exactly. So in other words, I'm looking at their.
So you're saying, if I want to improve my golf game, here's a golf coach, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, and except for the fact that maybe I think the value that we would bring in that relationship is, first off, being able to say, in other words, you look at the incentive structure, right? In other words, I don't have an incentive to try to sell coaching to someone because we don't have the time to do that. We don't, we're not practicing it. We have the vocabulary that's useful for us. It's useful for us to be able to talk to a coach and say, here's what we're seeing. Here are concerns about this business. Here's where I think, in other words, we want the business to sell for as high a value as possible. Yes, it helps us financially, but there's also a moral and ethical obligation there as well, right?
So if you were to tell a business owner who the one single thing they could do that would be the most impactful thing they could do to not only move themselves towards transition, but make their business more valuable, what would it be? What would you tell them to do?
That greatest weight in any valuation formula, almost there's all sorts of different ways to value businesses, but the one that's like greatest weight is going to be profitability. In other words, how do you measure your profit? And there's means you could talk to, you're
going to tell them, you're going to say, hey, get more profitable. And they're going to go, sure. How?
Right.
What do you tell them?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that I would tell them, but in terms of weighting, I would say that the get more profitable, be conscious of your expenses. In other words, how do you be, we need to install systems and processes in your business so that I will get the best illustrated by an example. I owned a property management company where we help people with residential properties. And what we found is, as the workload increased, we just started, we started hiring people, and that's a much more straightforward process than developing systems and processes within the business to make you more profitable, to automate things, for instance.
So you're going to say the biggest thing you can do is systematize as much as you can, right?
Right.
Okay.
And that is systematizing, and if you've probably read the E-Myth, right? It talks about creating a business that you treat your business as if you were going to franchise it, even if you never have intentions to, right? In other words, systems, processes, manuals. Here's how we do it here. That is another factor in and of itself that people look at that will improve the multiple of your business if you're selling it.
Right.
Here's the thing, that implementing those types of systems are going to make your business more profitable, because rather than taking two bodies to do a job, now you take one body to do a job, because you've spent the time and effort and resources to develop the system that you can be more efficient than the guy down the road.
So it sounds like what you're doing is you're saying, look, we're going to value the business. We're going to evaluate how it runs, not just what it's worth, but we're going to evaluate how it runs. We're going to show you what to do so you can get prepared. We're going to link you up with the right people if necessary to make the necessary adjustments, so that, again, this is a 3 to 5 year endeavor, so that at the end of that road, there is max value. They're going to talk to you about systems being less owner centric, all these things that are inhibitors to the highest possible valuation.
Correct.
And you're saying it's going to take about 3 to 5 years to get there.
Ideally, I mean, some people need to sell now, in which case just understand that the value of the business is the value of the business. And we can talk about, because no business is perfect. That might come as a surprise, right? Yeah. Just like no people are perfect.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's just, we have, so we have to deal with, if we're marketing a business, we're going to talk about the advantages of that business, and we'll de-emphasize the disadvantages, just like any other sales process. But the fact is, if a business is well systematized and it's got manuals in place, and if when you look at business for sale ads, and if a business broker's out there, he's going to say, if he can say anything about an absentee or semi-absentee business, he's going to. That's going to be in the ad. Most people will check that to see if that's really true.
Right.
But the fact is that the example I always give is that take two companies in the same industry. One pulls $300,000 a year top line, if he puts $300,000 of cash flow in his pocket. The other one puts $200,000 a year to cash flow in his pocket. We could say, well, which one is more valuable? Well, ask another question. The guy who pulls $300,000 a year puts 60 hours a week in. Now, Mike, you and I both know, and may have done in the past, put 60 hours a week in for $300,000 a year, and people call you successful, right? I mean, that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. But the guy that is putting $200,000 a year in his pocket is working 10 hours a week. Which business is more valuable?
Well, yeah, it goes without saying. It's about how how can the business, how efficiently can the business run without you? Really, that's the key litmus test.
Well, I mean, and if you think about it, just from a standpoint of, well, break it down into just an investment. How many potential buyers are there for, if you're putting 60 hours a week into your business, your buyer is going to have to be very expert and probably pretty similar to who you are if they're
Right.
going to pull that same money.
Right.
At 10 hours a week, you've just broadened the number of potential buyers out there. The pool of money that's available to invest at 10 hours a week.
All right.
So now someone is comparing buying your business to buying a piece of commercial real estate, or buying and looking at those returns versus residential real estate or other investment opportunities.
Got it. Well, listen, one last question before we wrap up. So this broadcast is sponsored or put on by the National Referral Network. How is your membership of the network? You mentioned the team approach earlier. How is your membership of the network help you be better?
I don't know how you guys did this, but for whatever reason, whenever I have a conversation with anyone within the network, the genuine interest in helping me and answering my question, whether it's an insurance question with some guy who's not in my market, and he's not helping himself. In other words, for whatever reason, maybe it's the people who are attracted to your network that are, or the network, I should say, our network, they have a genuine interest in offering real quality advice, or hey, let me see if I can find someone to help your guy in Southern California. Let me see if I can find someone that I can refer you to, that to this person in Florida. It's been amazing. Like I said, but it more so than just a list of professions. It's a list of professions with people who are very interested in helping, contributing.
That's great. I really appreciate that. Well, that does it for us today. Thanks, Dan. I'm just kidding, Dan Stewart. Dan, you can call me Ralph. Thanks very much for the wonderful insights. If you're a business owner and you're thinking about selling, you really should. Well, first of all, contact Stewart through the National Referral Network. You can contact us. You can check out the network at www.nrnamerica.com. For those of you who haven't looked at it yet, it's an awesome thing to be a part of. We're all helping each other just be better professionals and get more done. So for those of you looking at this, really do encourage you to look at it and reach out to us. You can get more information that way as well, more information about Stewart through the network. And Stewart, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.